From that.
Winn-Dixie's right for you.
We're right with price breakers like a pound carton of super brand margarine
A television, Montgomery.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bob Howell, executive producer of WSFA TV News here in Montgomery. Tonight, I'm delighted to welcome our statewide television audience, as well as the news media representatives in our studio this evening, to a special Governor's News Conference. Tonight, the governor will deliver a prepared statement concerning his political future and the future direction of his administration. After that statement, the governor will take questions from the media representatives in our studio. And now, the governor of the state of Alabama, the Honorable Fob James.
Thank you, Bob. My fellow Alabamians, thank you for allowing me to come into your homes this evening. 1978, you elected me to do a job in 4 years, to get the cost of state government in line, to move and to make state government responsive to all of you, not just a chosen few, to make state government truthful, to eliminate special treatment for political hacks, cronies, and hangers-on, to ensure that nobody made money off the taxpayers from political favoritism or patronage, be it asphalt contracts, liquor agents, or just plain corruption such as that found and cut out of the State Building Commission 3 years ago. I can say to you tonight, there are no bagmen in your capital. There are no bagmen in the shadows of your capital tonight. You elected me to confront head-on a six-state government, a government that had long forgotten the true meaning of merit, a government that had grown accustomed to decisions based on what's good politically, not what's in the public good. In department after department, drastic change has taken place. Let me give you some examples. The Highway Department was $500 million in debt. Debt incurred with no provision made to pay it back. Debt including $100 million borrowed in 1963, $160 million borrowed in 1967, $110 million borrowed in 1971, and $64 million borrowed in 1976. Each year, $40 million of your gas taxes went to pay off this debt rather than fix the potholes. When state government borrows money and makes no provision to pay it back, you, the people, will pick up the tab sooner or later. It was necessary to pass a 4-cent gas tax to pay off the debt. It was necessary to streamline the Highway Department from 5,800 employees in 1979 to 3,500 employees today. That same department is now handling the largest road and bridge program in the history of this state, your all-bonus road and bridge projects. Your Medicaid program was $34 million in the red, bankrupt. Hospitals, nursing homes, pharmacists, and doctors had not been paid in months. Thousands of our senior citizens worried that Medicaid benefits would be lost. The cost of that Medicaid system had gotten out of control. Abuse was rampant. Medicaid was reformed from stem to stern. The legislature came up with sufficient funds to pay off the back debt. Today, Alabama's Medicaid program is in the black and is recognized as one of the most efficient in the nation. We do not have enough prisons to lock up dangerous criminals. Nobody wanted to face that political nightmare. Our entire prison system was under court order. I simply asked the federal court to make me the federal receiver, and we started building 3 1,000 inmate prisons. The one in St. Clair County is scheduled for completion next year. The one in Jefferson County is scheduled for completion in 1984. The one in the Tennessee Valley is scheduled for completion in 1986. as I've said before, when you build a prison, the only way to make everybody in Alabama happy is to put it in Georgia or Mississippi. But I always figured I was elected to do what was right, not what was politically popular. And it was right to build new prisons in order to protect the innocent public. The same basic story could be told in a dozen other departments. The ABC Board, mental health, the National Guard, the Department of Public Safety, CETA, and others. And I right now would like to thank my cabinet members and thousands of state employees, dedicated employees all over Alabama, for a complete overhaul of state government. When I was a boy, I had an old mangy rabbit dog named Joe. When Joe would get full of fleas and ticks, like Goat Hill down here can get full of special interest, my daddy would fill a 55-gallon drum full of creosote and water. And old Joe knew what was coming, and he'd start to run and holler, just like some special interest folks I know down here. And I knew what I had to do with old Joe. I had to catch him and dip him. Well, after getting dipped real good, old Joe felt better. Old Joe hunted better. Old Joe looked better. And old Joe sure smelled better. The same with Goat Hill after a 3.5-year cleansing dip. I believe you elected me to set our priorities straight. The quest for literacy was set as a top priority. The war on illiteracy began. Every student was tested once a year. The results were measured and monitored. Action was taken where performance was lacking. Last year, Alabama students met the national average for the first time on the annual achievement test. To the students, the teachers, principals, administrators, other education personnel, parents and school boards that brought about this improvement, I congratulate you and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, literacy, is the foundation of individual freedom and economic opportunity. I pledge from the beginning to produce a state government open to all citizens. Today, from the Alabama Supreme Court to our circuit courts, to boards of registrars, throughout our entire system of government, black Alabamians are here for the first time. Women, for the first time, hold major cabinet positions and major merit positions. Ms. Rebecca Beasley as State Budget Officer. Dr. Allison Ballard as State Personnel Director. Ms. Faye Bargiano is Head of Welfare and Medicaid. Ms. Linda Hart is Head of CETA. Ms. Caroline Cavanaugh is Director of Publicity and Information. Ms. Helen Giese is Head of the Commission on Aging. Ms. Audrey Henderson of State Planning. And the list goes on and on. Their performance is outstanding, and I'm grateful. You will hear much campaign double talk about jobs and economic development in this political year. Let me say to you, when the dollar is priced beyond reach of the average American or average Alabamian, there can be no real economic opportunity, no real growth in jobs. 16 to 20% interest rates place the American dollar beyond reach of the average citizen, the average family, the average business, the average farm. In most cases, real jobs and real economic growth happen in spite of what politicians do, not because of what politicians do. Interest rates will not drop until the federal deficit is eliminated. Alabama is the only state that has gone on record requesting of its entire U.S. congressional delegation an additional 10% cut in federal funds, provided the federal government cuts its own spending 10%, thus eliminating its deficits, thus balancing its budget. thus giving the American people an interest rate they can afford, and that means a prime rate of 6%. Beware politicians who condemn the federal government out of one side of their mouth, yet demand more from it out of the other. I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart those members of the legislature who have supported and passed many of my reform proposals. There had been no reform proposals put before the legislature in decades. By that, I mean reform proposals that cut cross-grain to the vested interest of an entrenched political system. I call for total reform, unearmarking, isolation, one-stop permitting, to name a few. The job you elected me to do in 4 years is not quite finished. There are two issues that, if not resolved, will do great harm to you and to your family. The issue can only be resolved by legislative act. One issue is the much-needed reform of our state retirement system. With this reform, the Alabama retirement systems would be strengthened. Not one current public employee or retired public employee would be adversely affected. To the contrary, many would improve their financial positions. And you, the people, you, the taxpayers, would save $23 million per year in the education budget alone. This money would go a long way toward providing kindergarten for every child in the state, for your child, for your grandchild. The second issue is the elimination of soft spots in Alabama's criminal code. Until that is done, some of our laws lean toward the criminal, not the innocent victim, and that you should not tolerate. Let me say the issues addressed tonight are the real issues. I will keep them before the people in this election year. It would be wrong for me to work 3.5 years as your governor and fail to do everything in my power to see that you know the truth on issues that will affect you, your children, and your grandchildren. To allow the real issues to get lost in holler campaign talk would be a tragedy. The question you need to ask candidates for the legislature is, will you pass these reforms? The question you need to ask candidates for governor and lieutenant governor is, will you support these reforms? If the answer is no, you need to find out why. If the answer is yes, you need to find out when. Why not the next special session? The reforms are only 12 to 20 years overdue. I will work full-time in the days ahead for passage of these bills, which can mean so much to so many. There will be an August special session and other sessions if need be. I will work full-time in the days ahead to manage the largest public works in the history of this state, your all windfall projects. And with the construction of over $600 million in public facilities comes tens of thousands of jobs for Alabama citizens. You elected me to complete a job in 4 years, not 5 years, not 8 years, but 4 years. Therefore, I will not seek the Democratic nomination or the Republican nomination for governor of Alabama. For the remainder of my term, I place to you my best in every effort to finish the job on time, 100%. I need your help with the legislature in the upcoming special sessions. I urge you to get involved in the political process in this election year. Your future as an Alabamian and as an American has no limits. no matter your present station in life. We have only to march forward with dreams grounded in the toil of sweat and truth, as well as hope for the future. I said in my inaugural address that I'm not one bit in awe of government at any level, nor the trappings of any public office. And after 3.5 years, I'm still not at all. I said to you then, I'm awe-stricken and thankful for the goodness, the will, the compassion, the genius, the industry, the hope, the strength, the spirit, the integrity of my fellow citizens, the people of Alabama. And after 3.5 years, I still am, now more than ever before. And I said to you, the character of our government will never equal the greatness of our people. But it's time to bring the two closer together. And we have. To each and every one of you, I want to personally thank you for allowing me to serve as your governor. I want to thank you for your patience and your kindness, your support and your prayers. I've enjoyed every minute of this job. Thank you again. God bless you. I believe we have questions from the press at this time.
Governor James, my name is Chris Grimshaw with Channel 12 here in Montgomery. I'm particularly interested in when you made the decision to not run for governor. You have indicated for some time that you had not been thinking about your political, future. I want to know when you decided not to run or not to seek the Democratic nomination, and whether or not the statement that a governor should not succeed himself was the sole reason. If that was not the sole reason, what were the other factors?
Chris, when I made the decision to run for governor 6 years ago, I made the decision to run for governor for one term. There's never been any thought from that point.
Governor Bessie Ford, UPI. I know that you trust the voters, but in your opinion, do you think Alabama would be best served if George Wallace were elected this year? And if George Wallace is the Democratic nominee, would you pledge to support him against Emory Farmer?
Bessie, I agree very strongly with the first part of your statement that I do trust the voters. And I'm perfectly happy with whoever the voters select for any office. I got great respect for the judgment of the people of Alabama. As to speculations on various candidates, we went through that with Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan, and I'm one of those Alabamians who think the voting booth is a very private affair, and I think that I'll stick to that.
Governor Frank Brewer with the Birmingham Post-Herald. You had in this session the prayer bill and the text bill and the retirement bill, and the retirement and the prayer bill were passed, and they shot down the retirement bill, which was your prime objective. In the process, they also passed 2 tax bills. Now, you have indicated that you will call another special session, and apparently they're in a tax repeal position, the legislature. Is there any indication that they won't wipe out a number of other taxes that are existing and possibly...
Frank, I've learned not to second-guess the legislature anymore than second-guess the weather. But there are some responsible people there, and these issues are just now getting before the people, and the campaign season is just beginning. Now, let me give you 2 figures that I hope everybody in the state of Alabama will write down. Last year, Alabama, the state, spent $340 million for retirement benefits and Social Security only for state public employees. Last year, the state of Alabama 67 counties, all of our towns and cities, all of our school boards collected $310 million for local governments from property taxes. What I'm saying, we spent $340 million for retirement and fringe benefits. Our local governments and local school boards collected in property taxes $310 million. Something is wrong. Property taxes in Alabama are the lowest in the United States. Even with reappraisal, which is not an increase in taxes per se, but an effort to treat everybody the same, even with that, we are by far the lowest state, have the lowest property taxes of any state in America. I don't think property taxes are an issue, not a real issue. It may be an issue that people like to make in a political year, but I believe the people of Alabama will see through that. And if there are problems out there, technical problems, you have a board of equalization. And if any citizen has a problem with the appraisal of his property, he ought to go to the board of equalization and get relief. Now let me tell you what I'm talking about. If you got a house appraised...
I'm not sure that what I'm saying is if you open this up for one more session, 1 month before election, will they not come back with more tax repeal measures?
I wouldn't do it if I were in their shoes. If you fellows will get the news out to the people, no, they won't do it, because if the people understand them and they get in their minds what $340 million for retirement and what $310 million for all local government means, no, they won't do it. I can promise you they won't do it. So Frank, put that on the headlines. Would you do that for me?
Governor, I'm Ralph Holmes of the Birmingham News. You said you wouldn't seek another term as a Democrat or a Republican. You didn't mention as an independent. I'm assuming you do not plan to run for another term for governor in any capacity. That being so, what is your political future, if any? Do you plan to run for the U.S. Senate 2 years from now, or take a position in the Carter administration, or what do you plan to do?
I have never thought at all about any political career with any administration or ever seeking public office again. I came here from the back of the plant and the production lines, and I expect to go back there.
Thank you.
Mike Sherman, Governor with the Alabama Journal. You seem to be announcing tonight that you're leaving office with many of the larger initiatives of your administration left undone. Unearmarking, early in the administration we heard about a new constitution, retirement of course, and the AIC situation. Do you have any sort of feeling that you're bailing out on some of these?
No, I don't. I think we'll get to retirement, Mike, and I think that, as I said, I don't think the state of Alabama had ever had any real reform put to them before the legislature. We call for total reform, and we'll have a batting average of somewhere between 600 and 700% on the legislative reform only. Now, that does not include what a governor can do within the executive branch of government, and that does not include the other areas of education and opening state government up. You take them all part by part, and we ought to be batting about 900 by the end of the next 6 months. I regret that it's not 1,000, but 900 will usually get you in the ballpark.
Governor Phil Rawls with AP. If you were writing an Alabama history book 20 years from now, how would you describe your administration, and what would you say was your greatest accomplishment and your greatest failure?
Phil, I don't mean to be coy, but to try to look at anything in a historical perspective while it's in the process of happening is, historians tell me you can't do that. But I hope we've put an emphasis on literacy. That underwrites any civilization. I think state government is wide open to all people. I don't think that will ever change again. I don't think the people will allow it. I think the cost of government is stabilized. The operational cost of government is stabilized. I think such problems as prisons and mental health are on the verge of being solved. And I could go on down the line and list the performance of many, many departments, from the state docks to the oil windfall money to the isolation clause. It's in court now, but we think that people will wind up voting on it in a constitutional amendment. But literacy has got to stand at the top. Opening government has got to stand at the top. And I believe that integrity, when I said there were no bagmen, I meant that. And I think everybody knows it. There are no bagmen in the Capitol tonight, not one.
Governor James. Bob Ingram, WSFA TV.
Mr. Ingram.
In the next 6 to 7 weeks, 3 or 4 people are going to be running for governor. Going to be a lot of name calling. You may get your name called. Are you going to turn the other cheek, as the Bible admonishes you to do, or will you respond, and if so, how vigorously will you do that?
Bob, I have never reverted to name calling. I have been name called on many, many occasions. Now, I'm sitting up in the grandstand trying to get a job done. If some of the boys come out of the playing field down there and come up in the grandstand and slap me across the cheek, I'm going to knock them right back down there on that playing field. Just as hard as I can. And if any of them want to challenge me to a debate, let me say right now, I'd welcome that challenge on television, on any courthouse step in the state, on any school in the state, and even I'll go into their own rooms, if that's necessary, their own living room, and talk about the issue and put my record side by side, and I'd love to do that. So I hope to do. I hope to do. That would make the next 6 months even more interesting. As I said, I've enjoyed this job. That would really put the cherry on the dessert.
Thank you very much, Governor.
You've been watching a live Governor's News Conference from WSFA TV studio in Montgomery. In what may be one of his most eloquent addresses of the administration, Governor James told us tonight that he will not be a candidate for re-election in the fall voting. But in the same breath, he pledged to call the legislature back into more special sessions to finish the job that he says the people elected him to in 1978. And he urged greater citizen participation in the legislative process. The governor's speech was filled with references to the accomplishments of his administration in the areas of cleaning up state government, getting the state highway department out of a $500 million debt, passing a 4-cent gas tax, keeping the Medicaid department out of bankruptcy, and prison construction. He called attention to his achievements in hiring women and blacks and the improved test results for school children in the state. The governor then went on to answer questions from the media. So true to his word, Bob James will be a one-term governor, but his political future may not be over with tonight's announcement. I'm Bob Howell in the WSFA TV newsroom. Thank you for watching.
If you have a checking account, you pay a service charge, month after month. But there is a way to stop paying it. Open a new Amcheck checking account at Alabama National. Just deposit $100 in a regular savings account that pays 5.25%. As long as you keep that balance, you'll never have to pay another service charge. That's like Alabama National paying you, month after month. Amcheck, no service charge checking, only at Alabama National.
Reach deep inside you. Reach for a feeling that's right. Reach for that special something. Reach for Sprite. Reach for the lime. The taste you want is there. Reach for this great, refreshing soft drink anywhere. Reach for Sprite. Reach for Sprite.
Surprise! TG&Y Family Centers present surprise values. Dozens of items specially priced each week, including heavy-duty foam plates, just $1.23 a pack. Solo plastic cups, 2 packs, $1.50. Thermos jugular cooler, only $9.96. And Shasta in the 2-liter size is just 76 cents a bottle. To find these and many more unadvertised specials, just look for the surprise value signs throughout the store, where you'll find surprisingly low prices on selected items. But hurry! Surprise values are on for a limited time only at TG&Y Family Centers. Your value advantage.
WSFA Television, Montgomery.
There's no complaint?
No complaint.
Is there anything you would change?
Oh, you know, if you had it all over again, you'd know you could get there faster because you were familiar with the route. That's about it.
Thank you.
Mr. Duval, I presume.
Governor, my name is Sam Duval, reporter for the Advertiser. Are there any circumstances under which you would get involved either directly or indirectly in anybody's campaign this time? I mean, would you support any of the potential candidates for governor?
As governor, I don't plan to get involved in anybody else's campaign. It shouldn't. It's who I vote for. Just like you, I'm going to be listening and watching and seeing what to believe in, what to stand for, and make a judgment just like any other citizen.
Tim Funk with the Anderson Star. This is your first political office, and you've encouraged other citizens or laymen to run for office. I wonder if you would tell them now, after 3.5 years of experience, maybe you couldn't have told them then. And do you think your lack of experience hurt you in your relations with the legislature?
Not at all. The reason politicians say that lack of experience hurts somebody is because they don't want competition from the citizens. What I would say to anybody, and I do encourage all citizens to run, is just come down here. Don't let them fool you. Keep your foot on the ground. Call the shots like you see them. There's nothing complex or complicated about it. You take the retirement system. 6-year-old child knows that the cost of that is out of line and it ought to be changed. But we're talking about courage and guts and conviction. So that would be my message. Come down, be your own person. Have at it. Study the budgets, not complicated. All you got to do is wrap up with them for a couple nights. And all of this business about you need a lot of experience, that's absolutely politicians, professional politicians that don't want any competition, telling folks about how much experience helps. We've got experience in Washington, and you know the mess we're in. And some other places, too, that I've been recently.
Governor, my name's Norman Lumpkin. You said that you weren't going to run again. Could you tell us why you've made this decision? Are you just sick and tired of the legislature, the governor's office? Why are you not going to run?
No, Norman, I'm not at all sick and tired of the legislature. I get lonely when they're not here and expect to call them back in the special session again. And I love the job as governor. I've never enjoyed a job any more in all my life. I enjoyed working at Diversified. I enjoyed going to school at Auburn University. But there's something else over the hill. And when I made the decision to run for governor, I made the decision at that time to serve one term. And there's never been one serious thought past that.
You say there's something else over the hill. That worries us. What's over the hill?
Well, sometimes it's more fun if you're not exactly sure what's over the hill.
Oh, I see. You don't know what's over that hill. I think
not 100%. No.
But I don't want to fence with you, but there is something over the hill. Is it political or is it?
No, nothing definitive. I expect to go back to work, and at this time I've made no decisions as to what kind of work that will be, but it will be in the private sector. Well, I've accepted a job with the administration a couple of months ago. Up there, it's a non-paying job. They don't even pay your travel expenses. In this case, you know how those Republicans are. They're poor, cheap, and but I'm co-chairing with James Watts, a task force of 15 to 20 people around the country, heads of major conservation groups, the Riflemen's Association, Conservancy, Ducks Unlimited, and major number of industrialists to convince landowners, both public and private, corporate, to convert their holdings or their swamps into wetlands and to preserve them for waterfowl habitat. And I'm very encouraged about that. I've always had a tremendous interest and love in nature and conservation and waterfowl. So that's one thing that I do look forward to doing. But that's about the extent of my political passions at the moment, other than a balanced budget.
Don Hartley, Public Radio, WUAL, and Tuscaloosa. Back before this last special session of the legislature, I asked you if you felt that election year politics would play a big part in what might take place with the issues that you had proposed, and you said you hoped not, you didn't think so, you thought the legislature would do what was right. And now looking back in retrospect on it, were you disappointed that election year politics seemed to play the major part in the reason that retirement reforms didn't pass?
I was disappointed that it didn't pass. But when you say election year, I think the state, the people, really just now started looking at the political situation. And by August, their eyes will be wide open. And I think that can be positive. I think it's very positive when you totally uncover the issues, when all cards are put on the table face up for the public to see. That's a very healthy political environment. And we hope and we expect and we'll strive to make that a reality. Me to tell you how we'll come out in terms of what the legislature will pass or what it won't pass, I do not know. But I do believe the people of Alabama know that as far as taxes to state government, the state government needs no more money. All we need to do is use the money we've got in an effective manner. I mentioned to you earlier, reform of retirement system, and we could have enough money to very soon have kindergarten for all the 5-year-olds in the state rather than 1/3. So 2/3 of the 5-year-olds in the state of Alabama are being denied kindergarten because they won't reform the retirement system. Now, I just can't help but think that's going to catch on in the days ahead, and who knows what will happen at that point.
What will have to change for the legislature to go on and pass it before the election?
Folks just going to have to say to the legislators, now Joe, here you are amongst about 2,000 of us in a crowd, and we just think you ought to go on down there and pass that, or we're going to have problems on election day.
Governor, Maureen Christian, WSGN Birmingham. What would you say to supporters who would say to you that you have a responsibility to run for re-election because the field of the other available candidates is weak and unacceptable to a great many of them?
Well, the last part of it, Maureen, is certainly, I wouldn't comment on. That's a matter of individual judgment. On the first part of it, and I want to say this very carefully, you're both humbled and grateful when somebody says, and says sincerely, they would like for you to run again. But the insinuation I'm running out on somebody, we strongly committed for a new beginning. I think the state of Alabama's had a new beginning. We didn't commit to a happy ending. Now, a happy ending keeps unfolding, you know. 4 years from now, 4 years from now, that could go on and on and on and on, and we'll go on and on and on and on. That makes sense to you.
Can I have a second shot?
Yes,
Governor, some of us spent several hours yesterday trying to chase down a rumor that you put your lovely home on South Perry up for sale. If that be so, if you sell, where will the moving van go when it leaves South Perry on January 17th? Opelika or Washington?
Right now, his plans to go south.
South. Well, could you be a little more specific?
Well, how far can you go south in a moving van in the state of Alabama?
To the Gulf Coast.
That's right.
And you're retiring to Baldwin County.
Well, I headed that way 6 years ago, Bob, and got waylaid in Montgomery for about 4 years, but my plan's kind of not totally definite, but...
But the house is up for sale. Your home is.
No, we plan to put it up for sale very soon.
And you don't have a home in Opelika anymore.
That's right.
So you just about have to go south.
Headed that way about 6 years ago, as I said. Yes, sir.
Could you answer the part of my question a while ago that you didn't get to? What do you think is your greatest failure in your 3.5 years?
I did not possess the wisdom, the eloquence of metaphor, or the strength of personality to line up the House and Senate like soldiers and give them instructions and have them follow my instructions to the letter 100% of the time. And thank God they didn't. Yes.
You once said that you thought this legislature had the potential of being one of the greatest in the history of the state. How would you describe them now?
I think the jury is still out. I think they'll come back in here and pass 2 or 3 of these reform measures. This legislature will go down is passing more good legislature than any that I know of in recent history. As I said, and I want to make this point clear, this would be the first legislature that had the courage to address reform issues that cut cross-grain to the vested interest of the political system. Now, when you have like an oil lease windfall project, you're not cutting cross-grain to anything. You're just giving stuff out. That's fun. You have a big education program. That's like falling off a log. That kind of stuff that everybody calls legislation, that's not legislation. Well, I guess it is legislation, but it's not resisted. They might squabble a little bit how you're going to divide up the pie, and that's called compromise. But what we're talking about is legislation that take something from the system and put it into a better use as far as service to the people. Now that, to me, is reform legislation.
Where was that,
Huh?
Where was that they put that?
The isolation they passed did. The retirement, if they passed that, would. I thought the one-stop permitting was partially that. Some of the reform legislation in Medicaid stopped some of the abuse. And I could look at the record and find some more, but those are 4 that come to my mind right off the bat.
Governor, I was at a state employees meeting not long ago, and one of the ladies was there that wanted to know why Governor James hated the state employees so much. And she quoted some of the things that she felt like that you were doing unfair to state employees. How would you react to her? What would you say to her if she was able to ask you that question?
I'd have to say name what you're talking about. You have a new reclassification system that that you've needed for 15 years. It protects your merit status and gives every state employee, and half of them had already ceilinged out. They couldn't be promoted. It opens it up for promotions. I don't know of, and if I had known of, I would have fired anybody that did it, but I do not know of one promotion since I've been down here that was not based on merit. I know of not one time any state employee has ever been asked to do something for political reasons, not the first. They are paid, I made sure that our salaries were set competitive in the reclassification. It beats me. I don't know what ails some folks. We were able to bring the state government into a stabilized condition without any massive layoffs. We do expect an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, and I think we get that out of the great majority of our state employees. But I found out also down here that, it's a big gossip mill, and everybody's got their associations, and they distort the truth. They say that I'm against state employees because I want to reform the retirement system. They say I'm against state employees because I think 16 holidays is too much and we ought to have 10 or 11. I think it's just the opposite is true. I think those kinds of actions would give them greater and more stable job security. But probably that would be the only way I know to answer them. I've never had anybody specifically tell me why that condition exists, except if they say, look, we ought to have 16 state holidays. I say it's too many, just maybe a disagreement. Because I don't think state government ought to live any different from the private sector.
Governor, you came in criticizing the number of hired attorneys and consultants. But there have been quite a few hired attorneys and consultants, including someone who keeps poking up quite periodically, Lincoln Brudno. Could you tell me what Lincoln Brudno?
Lincoln Brudno? Sure. One of the reasons we've had a lot of attorneys is because we've had an awful lot of litigation in the federal course of things. All of that's coming to its head, and we are trying to get out of court order. Unfortunately, you got to have lawyers when you're in court. As to Lincoln Brudno individually, he's an expert in the field of organization and cutting cost.
What does he do?
He looks at a department, analyzes a department, and makes a recommendation as to where you've got too many people or not enough people, or where you could put in a certain sort of equipment and cut the cost.
Do you have any idea how much they paid?
I have no idea. Bobby Davis ought to know. How much we paying Bobby?
Total amount,
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look and tell you a real good figure right now.
Is it 4,000 a month or what?
No. We pay him by the day. And we may use him 1 day, 1 month, or we may use him 3 days, 1 month.
They can get
There
you
may
the-
have been a time that we did, or it could have been a time when we used him several days, but we use him on a day basis.
They can get you, that's a matter of record, of course. Be glad to give it to you. He worked a couple of years ago in that pension security office down in Lowndes County, didn't he?
He's done in Dallas County.
Dallas County.
He's done an awful lot of study reorganization work for us, and it's paid off pretty well. He's done a good bit of work in economic industrial development.
Governor, you said...
Frank, I'm not running off and leaving you. We can get you the exact figures and be glad to do it on it.
Governor, you said that you would still put the issues before the people. However, the last few sentences sounded very melancholy, a little nostalgic, like it should have been mid-January of '83 that you're making this statement. You've got 6 months to go. You're saying you're putting your house on the market. Is there any chance you're going to leave earlier than the expiration of the term?
Shoot, no. And you know, I might want to live in a mansion the last 6 months. See how that is, Bessie. I heard a lot about that place, read a lot about that place in the newspapers the last 3 years. Don't misread that. Nothing melancholy about what I said. I told the people, thank you. And I told them where we are. And what I was telling them, we got it on about the 10-yard line, first and goal.
But you could have taken your last page, though, and projected it 6 months from now, and it would have been appropriate for a person ending his term at that time. That's why I'm asking the question.
I'm just a lousy speechwriter, Bessie. I didn't mean to say that.
Tell me if you let me edit it before you came in here.
Next time I'll do that.
Do you foresee yourself as the governor of Alabama who got the state out from under the mental health and prison federal court order?
Yeah, and a lot of other stuff. Yes, sir. I don't know whether we'll have official documentation, total release from the courts, but I think you'll be out to the point that they'll say you're here, complete the construction and the money we already have for construction. We are like we won't have finished the construction by the end of this term, but the money is there and appropriated and it's under construction.
Governor, in case you are not, do you have any concerns that the following governor may goof up what you've done?
No, sir. None whatsoever.
Even though Governor Wallace is ahead in the polls, and some people might read this as a sort of that you didn't think much of his term.
No, I didn't. I just told it like I found it. You know, polls.
Could it get that way again?
Yeah, sure it could. All you got to do is shut your eyes about 5 minutes. Blink.
This is a follow to the other, and it may be an answer Jimmy or somebody else has to answer. What happens when you are no longer governor, but by your position as governor, you're ahead of the mental health and prison? What happens?
When I get through being
does that pass on automatically?
No, that's up to the courts, but they gonna release me of that when my term expires. Frank, man, I tell you what, don't. Yeah, they'll release me. Woo.
But they would have to find out the true meaning of fobbed again, Governor.
Hey, man.
Is it by office or by name or what?
I think it's a gentleman's agreement that they don't make you the federal receiver when you're no longer the governor.
But it does not automatically end, does it?
Well, no, but I'm certain when I throw myself on the mercy of the court that they wouldn't let that go.
One more question. What are you going to miss the most, Governor, when you leave?
Us.
Yeah. I'm gonna miss y'all and the legislature and everybody down here. I say this and I meant it. Montgomery and the people and the press and the legislature have been very generous with us, and we're grateful for that. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, sir.